Imagine this, you walk into a grand hall, marble floors, golden chandeliers, the air heavy with prestige. At the center stands a man cloaked in dignity, polished in words, admired by many. But behind his smile, there is something colder, something ancient. A hunger not for justice or truth, but for domination, validation, and control. Why do such men, so many like him, climb to the top? Why, in so many institutions across time and geography, do those who are morally compromised so often gain the throne? Power has always been a paradox. It promises order but often breeds chaos. It attracts the virtuous in theory, yet in practice, it seems to select the ruthless. Friedrich Nietzsche warned us with biting clarity, whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. But what if it's not the fight that corrupts, but the very desire to fight for power itself? Psychologically, the people most driven to gain power are often not the ones most equipped to wield it wisely. They may lack empathy but excel in manipulation. They crave certainty, not truth. Recognition, not understanding. Beneath the surface of their charisma lies a hollow core where shame, inferiority, or even rage once lived, and perhaps still does. Carl Jung once suggested that the shadow, the hidden, repressed part of ourselves, is most dangerous when it is projected outward. Many who rise in power have never confronted their own shadow. Instead, they build empires to hide from it, using others as mirrors to reflect back the image they want to see. What makes this even more terrifying is how well these individuals can mimic decency. They perform virtue like a stage act. They speak of morality while hollowing it out from the inside. Arthur Schopenhauer once remarked, "Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see." Perhaps the corrupt genius hits the target we fear to admit exists. The willingness of societies to believe appearances over essence. Power does not always corrupt, but it reveals. And more disturbingly, it often selects. The stage is set not just by those who take power, but by the systems and psyches that allow them to. Power does not knock down the door. It whispers, seduces. It flatters the ego, stroking it gently with illusions of control, influence, and legacy. Most disturbingly, it doesn't always appear in the form of tyranny or violence. Often, it wears the mask of benevolence, offering help, promising order, speaking of service. And yet, underneath those velvet words lies something far more primal. Aldous Huxley, in Brave New World, warned of a society not oppressed by cruelty, but pacified by comfort. He showed us that tyranny doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it sings lullabies. The same dynamic applies to the psychology of corrupt leaders. They rarely seize power by brute force anymore, they are invited in. We give them power not despite their flaws, but because of their confidence, their certainty, their mythic sense of purpose. This is where the illusion deepens. We are drawn to those who exude dominance. Research in psychology suggests that many people equate confidence with competence. The loudest voice becomes the leader, regardless of the substance behind it. And for those who crave power, this is an easy performance. They learn quickly, speak in absolutes, never show doubt, promise transformation. As Jean-Paul Sartre put it, man is nothing else but what he makes of himself. For the corrupt, that self is a carefully curated illusion, crafted not just to deceive others, but to silence their own inner doubts. But why do we fall for it? Why do we elevate the strongman, the visionary, the supposed savior? Viktor Frankl may offer a clue. In his exploration of human suffering, he wrote, "When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. Or perhaps with hope. We project our need for meaning onto those who promise to deliver it even if they're lying." This is not just about politicians or CEOs. The same dynamic unfolds in every hierarchy, corporations, religious institutions, families. The one who seeks power most desperately is often the one least willing to be accountable. They do not rise by lifting others, but by climbing over them with just enough charm to be applauded as they do it. The myth of the benevolent leader is comforting, but it is also dangerous. Because in the theater of power, the actor who plays savior may well be the one scripting the downfall of those who believe him. Power is not just about individuals, it is about the structures that elevate them. A single corrupt person cannot ascend without scaffolding. The real question isn't only why corrupt people rise, but how systems so often pave the way for their ascent. Imagine a ladder. Now imagine the rules of climbing at reward not collaboration but competition, not integrity but expedience, not reflection but relentless ambition. This is the anatomy of most modern institutions. From corporate boardrooms to political arenas, the systems themselves are designed, consciously or not, to reward traits like assertiveness, deception, narcissism, and moral flexibility. Jean-Jacques Rousseau once warned, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains." But perhaps some of those chains are golden, draped in rewards for conformity, for obedience to hierarchy, for suppressing dissent. In such environments, those with psychopathic traits, charm, manipulation, lack of empathy, thrive. They adapt quicker, feel less remorse, and can act decisively where others pause in ethical hesitation. The system doesn't correct this behavior, it promotes it. The workplace offers a microcosm of this. Studies have shown that corporate psychopaths are overrepresented in senior leadership roles, not because they're the most talented, but because they're the most willing to bend, flatter, and dominate. The rules of the game don't select for goodness. They select for performance, especially when that performance feeds shareholder profits or national pride. As Carl Jung noted, "The world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, the world will tell you." Systems of power have a way of shaping people into roles, masks, that reflect what the system values. And if the system values control, the mask will be made of iron. This is not merely structural, it is spiritual. When ambition is severed from conscience, institutions become breeding grounds for corruption. A man doesn't need to be evil to do evil. He simply needs to want the promotion more than the truth. He simply needs to believe that his rise is justified, even ordained. The tragedy is that we often don't realize the rot until it's too late. The system appears stable, efficient, successful, until the mask cracks and we glimpse the hollowness beneath. By then, the ruthless are entrenched, and the voices of the cautious, the wise, the humble have long since been silenced or expelled. It is tempting to see the corrupt as monsters, inhuman figures devoid of conscience or soul. But the truth is more uncomfortable. They are often deeply human, shaped by wounds we all carry in quieter ways. To understand why corrupt people rise, we must descend into the hollow places within them. Places where fear, inadequacy, and unmet needs fester, masked by grandiosity. At the heart of many corrupt individuals lies not confidence, but emptiness. A chronic, gnawing sense of inner void, disguised by dominance, veiled behind success. Their hunger for power is rarely about impact. It is about identity. Arthur Schopenhauer once wrote, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone. If he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. But for the power-hungry, solitude is unbearable. Without an audience, they are nothing." This emptiness often stems from unresolved psychological wounds, childhood neglect, feelings of inadequacy, rejection, or even humiliation. They chase control because they once felt helpless. They demand obedience because they once felt unseen. Power becomes the armor that protects the fragile ego underneath. But it is a brittle shield, one that must constantly be reinforced through conquest, validation, and the silencing of dissent. Jean-Paul Sartre's concept of bad faith, living inauthentically, deceiving oneself to avoid responsibility, echoes in their every action. The corrupt live a lie, not just publicly but internally. They tell themselves they are strong, righteous, essential. But deep down, they fear being exposed not as evil, but as small. This psychological dynamic creates a dangerous loop. The more power they amass, the more isolated they become. Surrounded by sycophants, shielded from criticism, they begin to believe their own mythology. Carl Jung warned of the spiritual delusion: the bigger the man's head gets, the easier it is to fill it with nonsense. And yet, we must resist the urge to pity them fully. Inner wounds do not excuse external harm. What makes the corrupt so dangerous is not just their pain, but their unwillingness to confront it. Instead of healing, they conquer. Instead of introspection, they dominate. Instead of seeking meaning, they fabricate it. The tragedy is not that these individuals are broken, but that they choose to break others to feel whole. The most unsettling truth is not that corrupt people rise, it's that we let them. Again and again. Across centuries, cultures, and institutions, humanity has crowned the unworthy, followed the deceivers, and cheered for those whose ambition eclipsed their conscience. Why? Because the corrupt do not rise alone. They are summoned by us. Aldous Huxley observed, "The surest way to work up a crusade in favor of some good cause is to promise people they will have a chance of maltreating someone. In this, he spoke not just of propaganda but of the deeper impulse to belong to something bigger, to outsource our doubts, our frustrations, even our violence. Power-hungry leaders tap into this impulse with chilling precision. They offer us not just direction, but absolution. And we, the crowd, are often ready to be led. Not because we are evil, but because we are tired. Because we crave certainty in a world of complexity. Because we fear chaos and are tempted by anyone who promises order. Corrupt leaders rise by offering us a simple enemy, a clear story, a place to deposit our fear, envy, and blame. As Viktor Frankl taught, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. But self-change is slow, painful, and quiet. Power offers the illusion of fast salvation, through leaders who vow to fix everything but start by breaking what remains. This is not just a political or institutional phenomenon, it is a psychological one. The corrupt rise when we trade reflection for reaction, when we want saviors more than we want truth, when we silence dissent in favor of comfort. Power does not corrupt in a vacuum. It expands in the fertile soil of our collective denial. Carl Jung warned that the world hangs on a thin thread, and that is the psyche of man. Our psyche, yours, mine, everyone's, contains both light and shadow. When we ignore the shadow in ourselves, we project it onto others. The corrupt become our shadows made flesh, ruling not just institutions, but our unspoken fears and unexamined desires. To stop the rise of corruption, we must first confront what in us allows it. The longing for a strong hand, the ease of blind obedience, the comfort of simplicity over nuance. The enemy is not only at the top, he is also in the mirror.